It's another Raw video from your favorite YouTube scout, Draft Raw Authentic. Yes, I'm finally here making another video, and like I said, it's a Raw one, so there will be no edits. Anyway, this vid is going to be about the winners of the 2018 NFL Draft. Now, I have about 6 teams named. I have one as an honorable mention, and then I have my top 5. So you know what? Let's just get into it. My honorable mention team. The Tennessee Titans. Yes, the Tennessee Titans. They only had 4 picks this year. Well, I believe they traded one away. But this was a really solid draft for them for what they got. This is a team that went to the playoffs last year, and that last year's draft class was actually pretty good, and the year before that was pretty good. So they're trying to build this team up. And to do that, you have to build this team in the middle out. And so with their first pick, they traded up to then draft Rashaan Evans, linebacker, Alabama. Now, what Rashaan Evans is going to give them, he's going to give them, obviously, a leader. He's also going to give them high energy. He's going to give them a playmaker. He's going to give them someone that is going to bring that physicality to the defense that they may be lacking a little bit, but he's going to give them that always solid play, a linebacker that can pretty much kind of do it all. That was very underrated coming out in terms of the top 4 linebackers, where you have Roquan Smith, Tremaine Edmonds, what was the other guy, Leighton Vander Esch, and then it was him. He honestly may be the best one out of all of them. So we'll see when it comes to that. But this is a guy that's going to pretty much put the Titans over the top. At least that's what I believe. With their second round pick, they went and got Harold Landry. Now, with Landry, this is a guy that is an amazing pass rusher. Now, this past year, it didn't show as much because he was injured a bit, but the year before that, he showed that he could be one of the best pass rushers in college and going into the NFL. I believe that this guy could get back to who he was in college, his junior season, and be a ferocious player off the edge. And where you got aging veterans like Brian Arakpo and Derek Morgan coming off the edge, having a Harold Landry out there gives you fresh legs that in the fourth quarter or on third downs, you have a guy that can put pressure and make plays on the quarterback. Now, I don't have a lot of information on that 5th round pick, so I'm going to actually skip that. But I believe that from what I've read about him, I haven't seen anything, but what I read about him, if he was to be a starter, he'll be a great compliment to a guy like a Kevin Byard, who I feel as though is one of the best free safeties in the game today. After that, in the 6th round with the 199th pick, they picked up Luke Falk, a guy that emulates Tom Brady, a guy that breathes, that just loves Tom Brady, that wants to be Tom Brady. And they picked him in a spot, the same number that Tom Brady was picked. So you have this guy that wants to be a Tom Brady. It's like the whole Kobe Bryant wants to be Michael Jordan. You have Luke Falk that he's going to come in and be a backup, but he's a guy that if Marcus Mariota gets hurt, which we've seen over the past couple of years since he's been in the league, Luke Falk is a guy that should be able to take over those reins for just that period of time and be able to have that team not really miss that much of a beat. He's a guy that he's got average arm strength. He's got pretty good accuracy, and he's a very, very smart guy. So putting him in rhythm, getting him into certain situations like that, he can be a pretty dangerous quarterback. But it makes it to where the Titans don't have to worry who their backup quarterback is because they got a smart, savvy rookie. Now, after that honorable mention, let's get into my top 5 teams. Number 5 is the St. Louis Rams. The reason why they're 5, they didn't have a first or second round pick. We all know why they didn't have a first or second round pick. They traded one of those picks for Brandon Cooks for the Patriots, so that's why they didn't have a first round pick. I don't remember why they didn't have a second round pick, but why does it matter? So in that first pick, they used it on left tackle Joe Noteboom. Now, you heard me. I said left tackle. The reason why I feel as though he is a left tackle is because he was one of the better natural pass blockers in the college game. He was, to me, one of the more underrated tackles coming out. Now, when he gets into the situation with the Rams, he's probably going to start at right tackle because Andrew Whitworth is the left tackle. But Andrew Whitworth is like over 35 years old. Eventually, he's going to hang up the boots, and you have your future left tackle, Joe Noteboom. And with him, he's the type of dude that he's going to be able to develop. He's a guy that can put on more size and put on more strength, but he also has all the natural stuff that you want from a tackle. He's over 6'5". He's around 300 something pounds or over 300 pounds, and he has over 34-inch arms. What else do you want from a left tackle? So this is a guy that I feel as though was a great pick for the St. Louis Rams. And then building on that offensive line, with their next pick in the 4th round, they chose Brian Allen. And Brian Allen was a very, very good pick because once again, he was my underrated center in the class. And he wasn't just the only underrated player in the Rams draft class. I'm going to get to that player a little bit later. But Joe Noteboom, who was my underrated tackle, Brian Allen, who was my underrated center, who has a chance to be the starting center for the St. Louis Rams this year. Now, the next pick was John Franklin from SF Austin, and I don't know much about him, so I'm not going to go too much into him. The next pick after that, though, was my own cousin, Micah Kiser. Micah Kiser is one of the better middle linebackers in the draft today. If you really paid close attention and notice, besides the linebackers that went in the 1st round, there was only one other linebacker that went ahead of Micah in terms of the position. Josey Jewell was the only middle linebacker to go ahead of Kiser. So you see where Kiser was kind of rated in terms of the middle linebackers in this draft. What the Rams are getting is a natural run stuffer, a dude that can blitz, a dude that is smart and that, always study and is a very, very hard worker. And I'm not just saying it because he's my cousin. I know this for a fact. And the thing about with Micah is that putting him next to a guy like Mark Barron, who will be kind of the coverage linebacker, and you have Micah, who would definitely be the run-stuffing linebacker, it makes a good combination. So it's a great pick right there. The next player on the list is that they picked the outside linebacker in this draft, a guy that can come off the edge in their 3-4 defense, and that is Obo Okorono from Oklahoma. That is a lot of O's. But anyway, Obo is a guy that is a natural pass rusher. He's not a gifted edge setter or a gifted pass coverage guy, but he's a gifted pass rusher that should be able to give them some pass rush that they already have. With guys like Ndamukong Suh and Aaron Donald already on the team, he's just a guy that's just going to add to that. And just like Harold Landry, who got drafted by the Tennessee Titans, he's one of those dudes that will come in the 4th quarter on 3rd downs and be able to give pressure and, make plays on the quarterback. And that was the 5th round. So then going into the 6th round, they went and chose my underrated running back. Now, like I said, there was another underrated player that they chose, and that was running back John Kelly from Tennessee. This guy paired up with Todd Gurley is going to be one of the best combinations in the league. You're not going to miss a beat. Todd Gurley, he's going to make his plays, do his thing, and then they're going to spell him for John Kelly. Now, John Kelly is not going to be like the natural 3rd down back, but, on 1st or 2nd down where, Todd may be a little tired, John Kelly can come in and he's just going to rip it up. I'm telling you, this dude is a beast, and they got one of the biggest steals in the draft with John Kelly. Now, they had 3 more 6th round picks and 2 7th round picks. Now, I didn't know most of those other picks because I didn't get a chance to study them. The reason why I used 2 draft websites to try to get the list of prospects in their certain genres, the names of all these different prospects, and none of these prospects I saw their names on it, so I never got to look at them. So in some of these other draft classes that I'm going to name, there's going to be players that I just don't have no clue about because I didn't get a chance to study them, and nor did I read up on them before I did this video, because I want to still give you a real raw thing, and I don't want to just give you some weird, just like whack, stuff that I just read off of somebody else's, because that's not for me. You know what I mean? If y'all come to me to hear what I think about a player, not what someone else is going to think about a player. But anyway, one of the picks that I did know is Justin Lawler from SMU. He's another pass rusher, defensive end guy, and he's one of those dudes that it's going to take him a while before he gets there, but he's a solid pass rusher, and I can't really say much about him. He's just a guy it's going to take him a year or two. Anyway, the fourth best team with the fourth team with the best draft class that I had was the Green Bay Packers. Now, the Packers started off with hitting it off with two corners in the first and second round. Jaire Alexander from Louisville and Josh Jackson from Iowa. Both these corners are in my top 5 personally. Josh Jackson is a natural ball hawking corner. He could also double as being a nickel or a free safety. Just natural hands because he used to play receiver. And then Jaire Alexander, who I actually have as my second best corner in the draft, right behind who I think is the number 1 corner, Mike Hughes, not Denzel Ward. But Jaire Alexander is definitely a really good stud player and should really help out the Packers a lot. Another dude that has ball skills, probably hands are not as good as Josh Jackson, but he has a lot more speed, a lot more quickness, and just natural instincts and cover ability, and both of them can tackle. So they got 2 studs right there. In the third round, they took Oren Burks from Vanderbilt. Now, Oren, from what I saw, he was a very, very athletic linebacker, and he made plays here and there, but he needs to work on being more consistent. And so that's the one pick within most of these picks where I'm just like, he's okay, but he's not great. And I probably would have went with someone else but him. But at the same time, he's an athletic linebacker that I think that they can find a way to use his talents. So then the next pick after that was one of my underrated type of wide receivers that I actually said in my wide receiver prospect video. I know it's 30 minutes long, but please take the chance to try to watch it, even if you have to watch it in parts. Just try to watch it. You'll hear some names where you're just like, oh, okay. And one of those names was Jamar Moore. Now, Jamar Moore, he didn't have the best 40 time at the combine, but this guy was one of the most strongest catchers I saw of the football. He just snatched the ball out the air all the time. And then his ability with the run after a catch is kind of similar to Davante Adams, very similar to him. And honestly, the Packers have a knack of finding really good receivers in the late rounds. They've done it plenty of times. Davante Adams, I know he was a second round, but still, they always tend to pick good receivers. Geronimo Allison, who was undrafted, a guy that I really, really like, ended up still being a pretty good player in the NFL because the Packers just know what they're doing when they choose receivers. After that, in the 5th round, Cole Madison from Washington State. Didn't get to see much of him, didn't watch him as much, so I can't put too much into him. They chose a punter in the 5th round. Don't know much about him neither. And they chose another wide receiver in the 5th round from South Florida. Don't know much about him either. I didn't really study that much tape, so it is what it is. But I was surprised that in the 6th round, they was able to get one of the receivers I thought was going to go in the 2nd or 3rd, and that is Equanimeous St. Brown from Notre Dame. Now, with St. Brown, this dude, I mean, he's probably the most hardest working receivers that is in this draft. Probably the hardest working prospect. Him and his other 2 brothers that are in college right now, these boys, they work so hard to being the best that I think that Equanimeous may very well turn out to be one of the better receiving prospects from this draft and a very big steal with a late round value. And it's kind of crazy because I didn't expect him to be there in the 6th round, and he was. So anyway, this is once again, the Packers know what they're doing when it comes to drafting receivers. After that, there was a couple other guys. There was a DN, a long snapper, and a linebacker. Like I said, certain players that I didn't get to study or know much about. So I'm going to just go ahead and skip those, and let me just go to the next team. Now, the next team on my list is a team that I thought had the 3rd best draft and is a winner of this draft is the Carolina Panthers. Yes, the Panthers. You know, I'm a little biased of why I like this draft. One, they chose 3 guys that are from the Maryland, Baltimore, Maryland area. Either they're from Baltimore or they're from the Maryland area. DJ Moore, who went to Maryland, who I thought was one of the better receivers in this draft. And after Courtland Sutton, I thought he was the best one after Courtland. And they also chose an Ian Thomas in the 4th round. who's from Baltimore but went to Indiana, who probably is the most athletic tight end in this draft class. And then Jermaine Carter Jr. from Maryland, who I had as my underrated linebacker in this draft class. And I think that he's going to be a huge upgrade to that Carolina Panthers defense. Now, looking at the other picks that they had, Dante Jackson, I'm not a huge fan of, but they had a need at cornerback, so they chose one. I don't think he's going to be terrible, but I don't think he's going to be as good as what the round that he was chosen in. Rashawn Golden from Tennessee, safety, not the biggest fan of him at all. Like I said in my safety videos, I wasn't a fan of the safeties in general of this year, so we'll see what happens with him. Then Marquise Hayes, pass rusher from Ole Miss, very solid pass rusher, has really good traits, but he's only a pass rusher, and that's all you're going to get with him. I don't know if he's going to be a great linebacker, but from what I saw from the Ole Miss stuff and everything, they did drop back in coverage a little bit, but to put him one-on-one with somebody, I don't think he's that guy. I think that he's just a guy that's going to come off the edge and make plays like that. They also had Andre Smith, a 7th-round pick, linebacker from UNC, very athletic, not overly great, but he's a very athletic linebacker that in the 7th round it creates good value because you're not sure how good he's going to be, so he could be really better than what you think. And Kendrick Norton, I didn't like his tape as much, but he's another known guy that I saw. He can make plays here or there. He's not going to be a great defensive tackle or whatever, but he's just one of those guys that's going to be solid and should develop, or not say develop, but should grow. And but once again, he's a 7th-round pick, so I'm not expecting too much from him anyway. But then after that, the number 2 team, who is a winner of the 2018 NFL Draft, is the Baltimore Ravens' rival, Cincinnati Bengals. Now, I have the Bengals up there because I actually like a lot of the guys that they picked. Just to name a few, Billy Price, the 1st-round pick, I think is a solid center. I think that they wanted an athletic center that could have some toughness. He just needs to work on being a lot more balanced as a center. With his athleticism, I think a lot of times he just tries to use his body as a blocker instead of using technique. Then you have Jesse Bates from Wake Forest, free safety. This is a need pick as well. Not a need pick to where it's like it was a reach, but it was a need pick because they needed a free safety. And I think that he could be a solid player. He's a rangy, deep field type of guy. Didn't have the best year this year, but the year before that was amazing. Next pick after that was Sam Hubbard. Not a huge fan of him. If you saw my defensive end video, then you know that I didn't like him as much of what I saw on tape, so he's just one of those guys that I'm going to just pass. Anyway, the next pick after that in the 3rd round was Malik Jefferson, athletic linebacker. He's one of those guys, though, he has one of the biggest bust potentials because I don't think he's very instinctive, but his sideline-to-sideline speed and what he can do on the field is absolutely amazing. And with a coaching staff that I was about to say Lovie Smith. I'm sorry. With the coaching staff from Marvin Lewis, with what they got, they can build him up into being a better player. In the 4th round, they got Mark Walton, who's one of the more underrated running backs in this draft class. He's a guy that in the beginning of the draft process, they were saying 6th round or something, and then he kind of built himself up. He started getting his name out there, and he started getting some headway. The next pick after that was Devontae Harris, cornerback for Illinois State. Don't know much about him, so I'm going to skip that. Then in the 5th round, also, they got Andrew Brown, who I believe is the defensive tackle from UVA. He's a guy that kind of played out of position. And for what they run in there as a defense as a 4-3, to me, Andrew Brown fits a 3-4, not a 4-3, but maybe they have a role for him. And the last 5th round pick was Darius Phillips, who I really, really like. The problem is that sometimes he could get a little lazy in coverage. But still, he's a guy that can really, when he turns it on, he can turn it on. And he has a knack for the end zone. For a cornerback, he has a knack for the end zone. He is a return man, kick return, punt return. And when he gets his hand on the ball or defense, usually he returns it for a touchdown. Last but not least, their last 3 picks, all 7th rounds. Rod Taylor was one of them. Wasn't a huge fan. But before that, they chose Logan Woodside, who is one of my favorite prospects in this draft. And it wasn't until the first day of the draft that I actually learned his name was getting pushed out there. So it's kind of weird, but it's just kind of like, okay. So it kind of gives me confirmation that what I'm looking at, what I'm seeing, I know what I'm talking about. I'm not stupid. I should know what I'm talking about. And he's a guy that, even though, yes, he's a 7th round pick, his name was being talked about. And that's the point that I'm trying to, that's where I'm trying to get to. You know what I mean? If I can name a prospect that other scouts are talking about too, then I know that I'm doing a good job. So then after that, the last pick was Auden Tate. Not a big fan of him as a receiver, but he's going to pretty much play special teams for them mostly, than being just a regular receiver. And then last but not least, the number 1 team that had the best draft class was the Denver Broncos. Yes, the Denver Broncos draft class was absolutely amazing. From round 1 to round 5, it was the greatest stretch I ever seen of just guys that I was just like, wow, that's a good player. Wow, that's a good player. Wow, that's a good player. Now, the picks, the 2 6th-round picks and their 7th-round picks, I didn't know it. I don't know as much, so I'm not even going to name those, but there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's 7 picks in those first 5 rounds was absolutely amazing. And okay, Bradley Chubb, to me, was the number 1 player in my prospects. He was the number 1 player. So getting him number 1, yeah. Then number 2, they got Courtland Sutton, who I think is the best receiver in this draft class. So it's just like, you just add it on. Then Royce Freeman is a good, solid running back. I'm not the biggest fan of him, but it's a need that they wanted to express and they wanted to get. After that, Isaac Yiadom from Boston College, a cornerback. This dude he's an aggressive just an aggressive press corner. And I think they're going to get something out of that guy. He's long, he's aggressive, he can press, he loves to tackle. They're going to get something out of him for the Denver Broncos and that defense. They just keep adding. Then Josey Jewell, another add to their defense. A linebacker that is going to complement a guy like a Brandon Marshall. Is going to be able to be an instinctive linebacker in that middle. Now, he may start off in special teams, but he should work his way up into the starting role. Very instinctive, very solid, very sound. And then after that, to build on that offense again, they got Deshaun Hamilton. Now, what's so funny about the Deshaun Hamilton, Penn State wide receiver, and Courtland Sutton, the wide receivers, that that combination reminds me of the receivers they already have on their team. Courtland Sutton being the Marius Thomas and Deshaun Hamilton being the Emmanuel Sanders. So they got those 2 guys that it complements it, and they kind of got a system that they have in place that they want to further on into years to come when you pick up 2 guys like that. And then last but not least, Troy Fumagalli in the 5th round, the tight end. I'm going to just say this. He has the chance of being the best tight end in this class. Now, the other tight ends like Dallas Goedert, Mark Andrews, Hayden Hurst, they're really good talents there, but they do have a chance to bust. This is the one tight end I don't see him busting at all. I see this guy being a solid tight end in this league and really being able to make a name for himself, especially when the Broncos don't actually have a tight end on the team. I think that as a rookie, he could actually turn out to be the starter. So anyway, these are my winners of the 2018 NFL Draft. Once again, this is Draft Raw Authentic. Please subscribe if you haven't. Please comment if you didn't like what I had to say or you want me to talk about any other team or any other thing about the draft or the NFL itself. Please share this video so other people can comment and we can have a debate about the draft process and the draft prospects. And please hit that like button. I thank you for watching. Goodbye.